Hi, Samina. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are so thrilled to have you with us, and of course, thrilled to have you as our prominent partner who assists us with immigration support and more in Mauritius. Welcome today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Lynn. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. And we are also very, very happy to be partnering with you on the Mauritius side.
I want to start with you telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself, your company, how long you've been around and in existence, and what's your specialty practice?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a chartered accountant by profession with around 15 years of experience in the field. I have been working in the largest offshore management companies here. And about 6 to 7 years ago, I had a vision. So my husband and myself, we sat down and we said, okay, let us make this vision become a reality. So our vision was to make all clients who are relocating to Mauritius have like a one-stop shop where they can really have all the services under one roof, be it from the perspective of their occupation permit assistance, their accounting, taxation, domestic company setup, even recruitment. Now that the law is changing, so now spouses will be allowed to work as well. So we assist as well with recruitment.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
So our company has been around for around maybe 6 to 7 years now.
Lovely.
And we are really seeing things we are getting very busy because this is an area where people are looking at Mauritius.
Yes, definitely. And in terms of the policies and procedures that are in place, can you give us sort of a brief insight into the current immigration policies and procedures that are in existence as a result, or the impact that they've been having by COVID-19 and how they're responding?
Okay, so currently, due to the so let me first give a brief overview of the type of permits that we have in Mauritius, and then after that I will brush over the COVID-19. So in Mauritius, we have the occupation permit system, which is broken down into the investor permit, the professional permit, and the self-employed permit. And then on the other side, we have the residence permit, where you can get a residence permit to live in Mauritius under the retirement scheme or under the acquisition of property scheme. So what the difference between an occupation permit and a residence permit is that the occupation permit gives you the right to live and work in Mauritius, whereas the residence permit gives you only the right to live in Mauritius without being professional active. Okay. So on an annual basis, there are a lot of permits. There are around 5,000 permits which are issued on a monthly basis by the authorities in Mauritius for all expatriates around the world who are coming here to live and work. Plus, so with the COVID-19, what has happened is that there has not been a halt per se. The process, even during the confinement, the process was still going on. Application was still being submitted. Okay. With the main difference is that the government has been extremely understanding in the sense that all those persons who went Mauritius and maybe their visas have expired, it has been extended up to the 30th of June, 2020. Okay. And all those persons who maybe were not in Mauritius and who were having their permit in process, these permits have been put on hold for the time being until the borders open again and these applicants can travel back to Mauritius for their interview.
Oh, I see. Okay, so they don't really have to start all over again. They've sort of frozen everything in place, and then once everything opens again, then people can come in and do their in-person interviews and biometrics or whatever else systems that they need to do. That's really great to hear. Exactly. So is that what you're advising your clients, basically, to just kind of hang 10, as they say, just wait it out until the borders are open again?
So yes, basically for all clients who are outside of Mauritius, what we are suggesting them is that so that they get ahead of the queue in the application process, we are submitting the application, but the approval in principle is only going to come through when the borders will open. Because then the authorities, they will give them the approval in principle so that they can travel to Mauritius to attend the interview.
I see.
So that's, yeah.
And is there any projection, Samina, on when the borders are going to be opening up?
Okay. So initially, we understood that the borders would be open by the 31st of August 2020. But then at the same time, Europe, like Mauritius is on the list for the UK, where they are accepting people coming from Mauritius. But taking into considerations all this political, not only political, but human aspect and economic aspect of things, it might be possible that the borders may open a little bit earlier. But at the same time, the government is at other countries. It's true that we are not as big as China or South Korea, but they are seeing the impact of a second wave. And this, having a second wave is going to be very, very tough on our economy. So that's the reason why the government is very, very prudent about this. We are also working, we have a line of communication that is open with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the government, whereby we are getting updated regularly as to what is happening.
Yes, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm sure that now it's just uncertain times right now. So everyone is just trying to gauge the situation and do the best that they can. But it's good to hear that Mauritius is willing to possibly open those borders a little earlier, you know, to reduce some of the impact that it's had on the country or the island economically, you know, in order to be able to resume particularly immigration support and people needing to come in and out, and of course tourism and all of those types of industries as well. So there's, just to recap, there's concessions for those people that are in Mauritius until June 30th. Now that time has passed now, Samina, so has that been extended?
So for all those persons who are currently in Mauritius and whose visas have expired, they need to go back to the Passport and Immigration Office, inform them, and they will be given an extension.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay.
The extension will be provided until will keep on being provided until the borders open again.
I see, I see. And in terms of, you did mention, of course, that those that are outside of Mauritius at this time and are not able to travel because of, for whatever reason, the fact that the borders are closed or they can't move around, that they also, their applications are really kind of on pause, and that once they enter the country, everything can resume as per normal. So does that mean that immigration authorities in Mauritius currently are being a little bit more lenient? Are they waiving any types of requirements right now? You're saying they're being supportive. Does that include them maybe waiving a few requirements, or are the requirements still the same? Give us some insight on that.
They are not waiving requirements in terms of documentation to be provided, but we do have certain circumstances where there are certain clients whose permits who are in Mauritius and who, for example, their permits have expired and they want to switch, and for switch types of permit. And for these, the government is providing a certain level of leniency. And also, it is only in terms of the visa that the leniency is being provided. But in terms of the documentation pack for application, there's no waiver per se.
There's no waiver per se. Okay, that makes sense. But it seems like it's quite seamless right now because you've never actually stopped submitting applications, which is really great to hear, unlike other jurisdictions.
Yes.
So let's turn to just the general sort of immigration landscape of Mauritius. Would you say there's any favorable industries that are more welcomed within Mauritius? And if they are, can you name some of the industries that you work more particularly with?
I think the number one industry that the government of Mauritius is really interested into is anything that is related to information technology, computer consultancy, software publishing, software development, because Mauritius really wants to be a software hub in the area.
Ah,
So there are some specific requirements for example, if a professional, if a person has been offered a job in Mauritius and it falls under the IT sector, then for a normal professional who is not in the IT sector, the minimum salary is currently 60,001 rupees per month,
okay.
the minimum basic salary.
Oh,
but then if you are into the IT sector, the minimum salary is 30,000 per month, basic salary for a professional. This is only to make it more interesting for people, for companies to employ good talents in terms of, and to make it easier and for people to relocate to Mauritius, those who are in the IT sector.
Yes, that would make sense. And I'm sure those influxes will continue to happen. So for businesses like that, like for example, taking the IT industry, what would you recommend to them in this climate that we are in, these uncertain times that we're in, for them to plan for the future, you know, regarding the movement of their staff, businesses, establishment? What would you recommend for them as they move forward and start planning for the upcoming year?
We need to realize that for a company to relocate to, first of all, so the relocation aspect for a company which is, let's say, into the IT industry, this process takes about 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
To set up the company, to have all his employees relocated, and to be up and running. Why 4 to 6 months? The company setup itself takes maybe two weeks to be set up.
Okay.
The company bank account takes some time.
Okay.
And between the process of submitting the application and getting the approval in principle and the person traveling to Mauritius to attend his interview,
yes,
it is, we count between 45 to 60 days.
Yes.
And then finding an office, organizing for all the logistics, this takes some time. So I would advise to companies who are considering relocating to Mauritius, please count around 4 to 6 months to be up and running fully.
Right. That's a good perspective, because you know you have to take those timelines into consideration, but also in addition, this new climate and COVID, that also needs to be sort of added into the mix. So give yourself much longer time, I would imagine, for planning, because you would need flexibility. From a business perspective, I think, you know, we've been hearing from companies and they are all restructuring and reorganizing their companies, and they're also reorganizing their mobility departments to see how assignments can occur from now on. So from a business perspective, I would imagine people would want to be more flexible, and having the support of immigration, you know, in the know, practitioners on the ground that are able to assess the situation within the jurisdiction they're in is incredibly helpful. So it is really important, I think, to share this information with the masses so that they understand not only the requirements that are in place, the timelines that are in place, but also to be advised by you all that, hey, this is also a very uncertain time, so plan in advance and be flexible with when you move your people, how you move your people, how long you move your people, whether you bring people in with their dependents or not, sort of how things are going to be evolving. My question though is, you've mentioned the in-person interview quite a bit, Samina. Does that mean that the Mauritian Immigration or Foreign Affairs Department is not going to consider doing some remote interviews in light of everything that's going on in the world? Do you think Mauritius's immigration processing and authorities will ever evolve more onto an online platform?
I do believe that we are going to move on to an online platform quite fast, because during this COVID-19, the speed at which the digitalization of the systems of the government has occurred is amazing.
Yeah.
First of all, and then secondly, the reason why the interview is done in person right now is just because when the interview is carried out, the original documents for the applicant are also verified and certified by the government authorities.
Yes.
That's the reason why it is an in-person.
Yes.
Whereas if there is another system that can be put in place where these original documents can be verified, then definitely like a visual conference can be done for an interview. Yes. But yes. I think this is definitely a pipeline.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, and also I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that will contribute to the efficiency of the process. And I think once that type of verification system can be in place, it will also encourage people to apply more and might increase the volume, because as you know, immigration is such a challenging area. It can be very complicated and it can be very time consuming from all parties. So I think that, you know, having that
yes.
type of online might be, you know, a little, it will add an encouraging factor, I think, to people to say, oh, you know, and also cost effective. You know, a lot of people will, you know, companies may say, oh, I don't have to keep sending you back and forth before you relocate on your assignment. We can do 80% or 85% from your home country or where you are in residence, and then you can just pack up one time and go. And I'm sure companies would appreciate that type of cost-effective way to proceed with mobility and assignments in the future. So now to move on. Yes.
There is something that we need also to realize. 2 years back, the permit system was not like this. Today, when you go for interview, if the authorities are happy with your documents that you have submitted, for instance, you get your permit immediately. The main applicant gets his permit immediately on the same day, on the spot.
Wow.
Previously, like 1.5 years, it was taking a lot of time. Like they had to do 2-3 reviews, and then there was no guarantee of the applicant getting his permit. Now there is much more transparency, because the moment a person gets his application principle, you're almost 90% sure that the person is going to get his permit on the day of the interview.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's quite an involvement in the last 1.5 years. That's really great to hear, Samina. There's progression there. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of sort of the hot topic right now, I know that I have been in touch with you quite a bit recently, considering this new budget announcement that occurred, and everybody is just fleeing to the nearest immigration or anyone related to immigration in Mauritius to find out whether it's true and when they can apply, or they want information. So can you please expand on this budget announcement regarding occupational permits and the new requirements, you know, about the combining of residence permits and work permits, the investment being reduced to $50,000. That's been the big one that everyone's asking about, or extending PR to 20 years. Shed some light for us, Samina.
Okay, so the process is like this. The budget has been announced on the 4th of June, 2020. When the budget is announced, it does not include all the terms and conditions for each announcement. So now these announcements are currently being debated at the parliament level, and as we speak, the first reading of because when the budget is announced, it comes to the finance bill. It becomes a finance bill.
Okay.
So then the first reading finance bill is currently being debated, read, and argued at the level of the parliament today.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
From the immigration, we expect, as service providers, we expect that most of what have been announced at the level of the budget, all of them are going to be enacted. So what are the headlines of what have been announced on the 4th of June 2020? Mainly that, as I have told you previously, there was a difference between the occupation permit and the residence permit, whereby people were allowed to work and live under the occupation permit, and residence permit, you're not allowed to work. So
right.
now they're going to combine both of them. So anyone, let's say a person buys a property in Mauritius, so he will be allowed, once he obtains his residence permit in Mauritius, he will be allowed to be professionally active.
I see.
That's a very big step for us, because you cannot expect a family to relocate to Mauritius after buying a property and not and ask them not to be professionally active. That's quite tough.
Yes, yes. I mean, and I remember you said that to be able to work in Mauritius can be really tough to find a job. So this would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
That's one thing. The other sensitive aspect is that when you had a lot of persons coming on occupation permits, let's say a husband is on a professional permit or an investor permit, his spouse or his common law partner, who is then on his permit as a dependent, was not allowed to work.
Yeah.
And we found several times many dependents were trying to maybe apply for a professional permit or look for a job or something like this. Now, the spouses or the common law partners will be allowed to work without a permit.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then the other point is every person who is going to be on a professional permit, they will be allowed to bring their parents to Mauritius.
Okay.
That is their mother, father, on both sides. So this is something very interesting, because the other area in which Mauritius is really welcoming people is on the level of the senior citizens. In August 19 last year, they have decreased the annual investment, the annual amount of money that the retirees had to bring into Mauritius from 30,000 annually to 18,000 annually. So it makes it more difficult. It makes it easier for people to relocate to Mauritius under the retired permit. The retired permit is suitable for persons from 50 years over.
Okay.
Okay, so this is and Mauritius has been encouraging promoters to build old age homes and to build facilities and activities around these areas.
And that's to attract that type of demographic. That's really great to support them as they make their transition.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
wow.
definitely.
Wow.
And then the other big aspect that has come through the announcement is that previously, when you are on a professional permit or you are on a retired permit, you are not allowed to hold any investment in Mauritius. Because you are on a professional permit, you are on a salary, so you're not expected to be making any investments. And if you are on a retired permit, you are on a residence permit in Mauritius, and the government expected you not to hold any investments in Mauritius. So now this has been changed.
Okay.
And persons on professional permits or retired permits are now allowed to hold investments in Mauritius in other business ventures that are not necessarily related to their area of expertise.
Oh, well, okay. Or relation to their permits or their visas or anything like that. That is interesting. That is interesting. And then what about the potential extension of permanent residence to 20 years? What is the current law surrounding permanent residence?
Okay. So the current law for permanent residence is that if you have you have been holding your permit for 3 years, after the initial 3 years, and if you meet certain conditions, then you can go onto the 10-year permanent residence permit. That is, you are still on a professional permit, but then on a 10-year permanent residence permit. So now they have removed those conditions which were initially attached to the occupation permits, such that these conditions anybody who holds an occupation permit in Mauritius can straight away, whether he meets the conditions for the permanent residence permit or not, he can straight away go onto the permanent residence route for 10 years. And for retired, the length of the permanent residence permit is supposed to change from 10 years to 20 years. That is, they will not have to renew their permanent residence permit every 10 years. They can have it at one go and get it renewed every 20 years.
Okay.
Also, the other very, very important thing that is interesting in this budget is that the initial investment for an investor permit has decreased by 50%. I think it makes it more reasonable and more accessible to persons who want to set up a business in Mauritius to come through and be on an investor permit.
Yes, yes. So to recap, Samina, you said that all of these announcements pertaining to what you just talked about and what we discussed, it's going to take about, what, 2 to 3 months to process, to discuss, and to enact these into Mauritian law, and thereupon it will be implemented? Or how do you see it unfolding?
We are targeting worst case scenario. It is going to be here by the end of August. But at the speed at which it is being debated at the level of the parliament, we think that by the beginning of August, it should be enacted.
Wow, wow. That's quite exciting, actually. I'm actually quite excited about that. You know, as I said, we've been receiving so many inquiries. So I know that our listeners right now are very intrigued about this announcement in particular, as it's one of the most recent nuggets that we've received from Mauritius. And is there anything else that, you know, as we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with us, with our listeners, within the parameters of what we've talked about today?
Yes, definitely. It is going to be more interesting to buy property in Mauritius because the minimum requirement has decreased from $500,000 to $375,000 to obtain a residence permit in Mauritius. And I think it falls into the current circumstances that we are. So 500,000 is a lot of money, and 375,000 is a lot of money as well. But I think by the government,
definitely.
This move, I think it's
but I'm sure for a lot of investors, that's a huge relief, right?
And then the other good thing is that, you know, Mauritius is developing several smart cities.
Okay.
Previously, foreigners were not allowed to buy land in Mauritius, like buy a piece of land and then build a house or things like this. So they had to buy only under approved schemes.
Yes.
So now the government is allowing foreigners to buy land with a maximum surface area of 2,100 meters square in smart cities. So the concept of the smart cities is a place where you work, live, and play.
Lovely. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Samina. This has been, I know for myself, incredibly insightful and informative. And I know that our listeners are going to feel the same way. I'm sure we'll get quite a bit of feedback and inquiries as we move forward, as all of these new budget announcements unfold and the debates unfold and the implementation process begins. So I look forward to continuing to work with you and your team. And thank you so much for being here once again.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Have a great day.
And we look forward to working with you.
Great. Thank you, Samina. Bye-bye.